All right, so let's get started. As I mentioned in the blog post today and yesterday and the day before, is this past Sunday, we had an unfortunate situation where the recording of the well didn't happen. We had all kinds of technical difficulties, and for some reason it didn't record. Now, that at first we thought that was kind of a bad thing, but the positive thing that came from it is it opened up the door for me to try this thing, which I've wanted to try this whole scoping thing for a while, so it opened up the door for me to give that a try. So what I'm going to talk about is what I spoke about on Sunday and what I blogged about this morning, which is we're in a series talking about prayer, but what we're talking about specifically this particular week is what happens when our prayers don't get answered. And more importantly, whose fault is it? Because if we're honest, most of the time when we pray for something and we don't get our requests granted by God, we usually blame God. We say things like, well, it's not God's will, or, God just wants me to suffer, or, it's not God's plan for my life. And we have all these ways to blame God for not getting our prayers answered. Well, it's easy to blame God for not getting your prayers answered. He's the easy target because he doesn't say anything. But here's what I want to say to you, is that sometimes the responsibility isn't God's. Sometimes the responsibility is yours. And for sure there are times where it isn't God's will, okay? And I don't want to downplay that or make light of that. Sometimes it is not God's will for you to get whatever it is that you're asking for, but sometimes it is God's will. And sometimes for sure it's not part of God's plan, but sometimes it is 100% God's plan. But the problem isn't on God's end, it's on our end. So what I want to talk about today, as I wrote about in the blog this morning, is 4 factors, all right? 4 factors that contribute to us getting a yes to God, from God in prayer. Now, I want to be clear and say, I'm not talking about a formula, because prayer is not a formula. So I'm not saying if you do A, B, C, and D, then whatever you ask for, God will give you. Because, like as I said in the beginning, is that sometimes it isn't God's will. And no matter what you do, if something is against the will of God, no matter how much you beg for it and plead for it, okay, God is not going to give you something that is against, his desire for you or his plan for you. The example I always think of is, remember when we were kids, or not even when we were kids, all the time in Christmas season, remember the movie A Christmas Story? All right, with that little boy, okay, and that little boy just wanted one thing for Christmas. All right, one thing for Christmas. Who remembers? Type it in there. What did that little boy want for Christmas in A Christmas Story? First one to get it gets a shout out here on my scope. That little boy is the movie that comes up. Red Flyer? Not exactly a red flyer. Close. You got one of the words right. The word red is right. It was a red Christian shoes. No, it wasn't Christian shoes. It's not a Christian. A BB gun. Very good. A Red Ryder BB gun. Okay, and it was a rifle. Very good. Red Ryder BB gun. I'm sorry. The screen is just so small I cannot see your names, but congratulations to whoever said Red Ryder BB gun. In the movie, this boy wanted a Red Ryder BB gun. I need a Red Ryder BB gun. And he wanted his gun so badly. And every time he would ask for it, his dad would say to him, you can't have a BB gun because you will shoot your eye out. And in that same way, no matter what the boy would do, okay, he could never get his dad to give him that gift because his dad was just against him having that gift. Now, eventually he got enough money and got it himself, but that's a different story. My point is here with prayer is the same thing. Some things are not the will of God. God will not give us regardless of these 4 factors. But some things are the will of God. And many times, it's not God who is stopping us from getting our prayers answered. It's us who are stopping us from getting our prayers answered. And that's what I want to address today. We're going to look at 4 factors. I put them on my blog. I'll go in more detail here, obviously. 4 factors that contribute to you getting your prayers answered. All right? Number 1 factor is our relationships. All right? Our relationships make a difference, and they matter to God when it comes to Him answering our prayers. I have 2 children. All right, and in my household, as well as I'm sure the households of every parent who's out there, you have rules for your children. Okay, chores they have to do, or obligations, they have to get their homework done, they have to keep their room clean, whatever it may be. So in my house, kids come home usually around 3:45, 4 o'clock, and from 4 to 5 is like our homework time. And then from 5 to 6 is like our playtime, whether it's basketball or soccer or whatever. Like they have to play, nothing electronic, something play. And then from 6 to 7 is dinner and miscellaneous. Meaning that once we start eating dinner, okay, once they finish, they can do whatever they want. So they can watch TV if they want. My son is into fantasy football these days, so he's all over the fantasy football, so he can check his fantasy team and make trades and do whatever it is that he wants. They can play video games, whatever they want, from 6 to 7. As long as they did homework from 4 to 5 and had their playtime from 6 to 7, or 5 to 6, then they could do what they want. But let's say my children come to me, okay, and during that playtime, they got into a fight. All right, they started fighting and pushing and shoving and screaming and cursing and everything like that. And then they come to me, and I get upset, okay, because the kids, nothing gets a parent more angry than when their kids fight. So the kids fight, and then they come to me and say, okay, Dad, I finished my dinner. Can I play video games? And I say, no, you can't play video games. And they say, well, I did my chores. And I say, I did my homework. Say, well, I did everything that I was supposed to do today. Okay, that may be true. You may have done all your chores, but you fought with your sister. And fighting and lack of love with the people who are around you, that trumps any obedience that you did before that. So we can't come to God. Same thing, when we come to God and we say, God, okay, well, I went to church. And God, I did my morning prayers. And God, I read my Bible. And God, I gave money in the money box. And God, I did. Okay, but you're mean to your sister out in the street. You are not, you're holding a grudge and not forgiving your brother. And you are disrespectful towards your parents. So our relationships make a difference as they do in our relationship with our parents. Like as me with my children, I factor in the love between the children when granting their requests. God in heaven, no doubt, does the same. And if we are not loving one another, all right, if we are not loving one another, then God will not grant our requests. No matter how much we pray and beg and plead, then simply, no father. Okay, if you come to me, all right, and then you knock my kid over and say, boom, and push him down in the street, and then come to me and say, hey, Father Anthony, can you come bless my house? That's not how it works. All right, if you are not gentle and kind and loving with my children, then there's no way you can come to me. You have no ground to stand on when making a request to me. All right, that's why what Jesus said to the Pharisees in the New Testament, he said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Y'all make sacrifices and you think that you'll be heard because you made the right offerings and sacrifices, but there's no mercy between you and your fellow brother. So that's the first thing. Okay, that's the first thing. Someone's asking a question. Does that mean we have to be perfect with everyone to get our prayers answered? No, it doesn't mean we have to be perfect. And as I said in the beginning, in case those who weren't here, I'm not giving you a formula to get a yes in prayer. But what I'm telling you is the factors that matter when God is considering and hearing our prayers. So no, I'm not saying that we have to be perfect. We all make mistakes. But what I'm saying is when God looks, you present to God this request. God, I want this. Then the first thing God will look at is look at your relationships. And if you come to him and say, God, I need an A on this test. And God, I need a promotion in this job. And God, I need a solution to this problem. Okay, and you're begging and you're pleading to him. And he looks at your relationships and you aren't forgiving and loving and being kind and being gentle. Your relationships matter when it comes to getting your prayers answered. Okay? That's number one. Number two. Not only our relationships matter, but our motives matter. Our motives matter. Epistle of St. James, the New Testament, chapter 4, verse 3. James says it simply. He says, you ask and do not receive. Why? Because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your pleasures. You ask and you do not receive, because you ask amiss, that you may spend it on your pleasures. Said another way, what James is trying to tell us right here is that the why is just as important as the what. So not just what you're asking makes a difference to God, but why you're asking it. So when God hears our requests, let's say, for example, you're up there, okay, and you're in your prayer room and you're praying for a new house. God, give me a new house. This house, is no good anymore. I need a new house. You can try to convince yourself that that new house is for the glory of God But God sees the truth. And many times you're not praying because you want a house for the glory of God. You're praying because you just are greedy and you just want a bigger house. And I'm saying that two people who pray for a new house, one his motivation is greed and one whose motivation is for the glory of God, is going to be different. For another example, you may be praying for a promotion and saying, God, give me this promotion. God, give me this promotion. And you convince yourself that you're doing it for the sake of your family and to put them in a better position in your kid's college fund. But God sees that the true motivation is actually your ego and it's your pride. And that makes a difference when it comes to God answering prayers. I know someone who prayed very hard for his female coworker to be converted to Christianity and to come to church. He invited her to church and she didn't come. And the true motive, as great as a prayer as that seemed, that she would come to church and that she would become a Christian, his true motive was he wanted to date her. Okay? And he basically wanted to marry the girl and propose to her, but he knew he couldn't unless she would come to church. His parents wouldn't accept it. So again, I'm not saying those prayers are bad, but what I am saying is what the book of Proverbs says, chapter 16, verse 2, which says, all a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. Again, Proverbs 16:2. All a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. How do we tell our motives? I can't give you a black or white test. Okay, say, A, B, or C, and this will tell you your motives. But I can say is we need to be honest and evaluate ourselves honestly and check our motives because God sees those motives. Okay? That was number 2. I'm going to speed things along right here because I'm going a little bit slower than I expected. So I'm going to pick things up right here. Number 3, our lifestyle matters. Our lifestyle matters to God, okay? Someone asked a question right there. Is it wrong to pray for something you want, not something that you need? It's not wrong. It depends on the motive, okay? And I'm just going to say that real quick right now, and then maybe I'll come back to that. Okay, my goal is to finish up in the next 5 minutes and then take some questions. So let me kind of finish through right here because I know some people are at work and need to finish their lunch. Number 3, our lifestyle matters. Our lifestyle matters. And this is the one where most people, if you want to be angry at me or disagree with something I'm going to say, listen closely because this is your section. What I said this past Sunday, all right, and I wrote this on the blog post this morning, is that if you want your Sunday morning prayers to be answered, maybe you need to examine how you're spending your Saturday nights. And maybe some of the reason why our prayers are not being answered is because the lifestyle that we live is not a righteous lifestyle and is not one that's pleasing to God. Now, you say, hey, wait a minute, that sounds kind of legalistic. And that sounds kind of like, like Pharisees kind of a thing. Well, let me give you a verse from the Bible as well as a real life example to make it clear. Proverbs 15:29. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. I understand this makes some of us feel uncomfortable. Let me tell you this. You walk out on the street today. You're walking down the street and you see 2 homeless people who are both begging for money. And the 2 homeless people look the same, both asking the same thing. And you got $10 bill, you can only give it to one of them. One of them is a hard worker. And he was working 2 jobs until he got sick. And he's trying to get help so he can get a job so he can help his wife and his kids put food on the table for them. He's a hardworking guy. He lost everything due to circumstances out of his control. That's option number 1. Second guy is a lazy guy who had several job offers, but he chose not to accept any of them because they were below his standard for what he felt for himself. Okay, and he squandered the money that he had, and any money that he gets, he's going to go spend it on alcohol to get drunk. You got $10. You got these 2 options. Who are you going to give the money to? Are you going to think about it for very long? Is it a tough decision? Every one of us would do the same thing. We would invest our limited resources in the person who we felt was going to make the best use of them. Okay, so their lifestyle, I'm not saying I love one more than the other, but what it is saying is that I'm going to invest in the one that's going to make the best use of it. So you say, I want God to give me whatever. Okay, you say, I'm single. I want God to give me a wife. I say, okay, well, there is ladies all around you right now, your Christian sisters, and do you treat them with respect? Do you treat them with dignity? Do you treat them with honor? Or you just wait for God to give you something even though you have not been very righteous in what he has given you, in the friendships that he has given you? You say, I want God to give me more money. Okay, well, the little that he has given you, have you been faithful in that? And have you been generous with that? Or you think it's all your own? Bottom line is, if we reward righteousness, okay, when it comes to giving away our money, why do we think that God is any different? All right, the sentence that I said on Sunday that may have, took some people a little bit back. I said the bottom line is, if we want our prayers answered on Sunday mornings, then we got to stop getting drunk on Saturday nights. But you can't go out and get drunk on a Saturday night and then expect God to answer your prayers on a Sunday morning. That's not how it works. Your lifestyle matters. Your lifestyle matters. All right. Last but not least, okay, the fourth factor, all right, then I'll wrap it up right here, is our faith. Okay, our faith matters. And this one, man, I could do a whole 5-week series just on this one, okay? And I'm just going to mention this right here because I know this one can be misconstrued a little bit, all right? When I say that you need faith to get your prayers answered. Some people go to the extreme, like there's two extremes here. One extreme is whatever you pray, as long as you believe, God will give it to you. Whatever you believe, God will give it to you. Whatever you believe, God will give it to you. And I don't believe that personally because, as I said, is that I can believe with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength that I should be playing in the NFL and I should be quarterback of the Washington Redskins. No matter how much I believe it isn't going to happen. All right, no matter how much faith that I have. So some things are simply outside of God's will. And some things are outside of God's plan. And it's not a matter of just believe and believe and believe and get whatever it is that you want. Because the same people who say that, when you tell them, well, I believed and prayed and didn't get it, they'll say, okay, well, you didn't really believe. So, I mean, it's an easy argument to make on the other end. But the other extreme, one extreme is believe whatever you want, believe and you get whatever you want. The other extreme is that faith has nothing to do with our prayers. And God just does whatever it is that he wants. And, God's will, and, basically we're just kind of moving along passively through life. And I don't believe that either. I believe that our faith does make a difference. And as I said, all right, there are some things that are outside the will of God. All right, and for those things, I'm actually going to have the entire session, okay, the last message in this series, week 5, is all about this. When we have done everything in our power, and we prayed, and we got our relationships, and our motives, and our lifestyle, and our faith, and we got everything in order, and we still got to know, okay, what do we do then? That's a whole other topic. Like I said, that's week 5 for those who are following along the series. But what I want to say right now is let's not jump to the conclusion that it's against God's will. Let's not jump to the point to say, you know what, this thing that we're praying for, God just doesn't want it. Let's examine our motives. Make sure they're pure. Let's make sure that our relationships, that we're walking in love. Let's make sure that our lifestyle, okay, is one of integrity. And we're not just asking God on Sunday morning, but our lifestyle on Friday and Saturday and Monday and Tuesday matches what we're asking in our prayer. And let's make sure that we believe, all right, and we put our faith in God, that our God can do the impossible. And the things which are impossible with men are possible with God. But we know, as it says in James chapter 1, that the man who does not believe, let not that man think that he shall receive anything from the Lord. That's James 1, 6 and 7. Okay? Bottom line, okay, as I wrap up right here, bottom line is that don't make God out to be a mean person. Okay, don't make God out to be cheap. Don't make God out to be someone who just wants to make your life miserable, not give you things. God is a loving father. And I'm telling you, me as a father, man, I love to give my kids things. I love to reward them when they follow what I ask them to do. I love to reward them when they're loving each other and they're behaving as I want. Like, I love to reward them and give them things. And God is not any different. So stop saying that it's just God's will that I don't get this. It may not be God's will. Okay, let me be very clear with that. And yes, someone is saying sometimes God does like to teach lessons, but sometimes it is God's will, and we are the ones who are the bottleneck, not God. Okay? Leave you with a verse, Matthew 7:11. If you then, being evil, know how to give good things to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Okay? Okay. Whatever questions that you got, go ahead and fire them up on that screen, and we'll just go rapid repeat right here and go as quickly as we can. I'll try to answer whatever questions that you got about what I said. Okay, and forgive me for those who flashed up questions before. I didn't get a chance to get to them all. This scope thing, man, they pop up kind of quick and then they fade away. You see what I see, okay, which is that they just pop up and go away. So Any questions that you got? Anything that you want to say? Are you having fun? Yeah, absolutely I'm having fun. Why would I not be having fun? It's a beautiful sunny day here. The Redskins won on Sunday. Like we're in good shape right here. Everything is good right here. There's nothing that I can complain about, okay, in my life. On motivation, the example of the guy wanting the girl to go to church. What was wrong with him? Well, again, it's good that he wants her to go to church, but is the motivation just that he gets to date her? All right, or is the motivation that she would come to know the Lord? And the way that you would kind of test this, well, is he praying for his other coworkers to come to church in the same way? Does he care about inviting other people to church, or only the attractive people he wants to invite them to church? See what I'm saying? For lifestyle, if I'm doing my best, but it's still hard to stop the sin, is it still good enough? Yeah, I don't want to, again, this is not a legalistic kind of a thing, okay? So absolutely, I'm not the judge of whether you're doing good enough or not. But what I'll say is this, is that God does not expect us to be perfect, but he does expect us to strive for perfection. So if you're striving and you're fighting the good fight, man, keep on fighting, and God will fight for you, okay? You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to give it your best shot, okay? Any other questions out there from anyone? If someone then does good things just to get their prayers answered, wouldn't that be wrong, selfish? Absolutely, and that goes to the motives question, okay? That would be someone with maybe the wrong motives. He is, okay, I'm going to put money in the money box. We do that to like bribe God. Okay, God, here's my donation. Now I'm expecting the promotion to come, or expecting to win the lottery or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. That goes to the motivation, okay? I'm sorry, 2 questions popped up there, and I struggled to talk and read at the same time. You guys got to forgive me, okay? There's 2 other questions that I didn't see them. I wish, one thing about this Periscope, I don't know why they don't store the questions. Tough question, but how can we know when it's not his will? All right, I'm going to answer that real quick. Start by assuming that it is his will, and get those 4 factors in order. And then after you've gotten those 4 factors in order, if it's still God isn't answering, then we'll jump to it's not God's will. But don't start off with it's not God's will. Okay, start off with that Holy Spirit is leading me and guiding me and wants me to request this thing because God wants to give it to me. And then if I don't, then jump to God's will. Okay? I got 3 minutes left. How long should I pray for something? Until when? When should I stop asking? I don't have an answer to that. I don't have an answer to that. That's the kind of thing that I don't think there is an answer. I don't think anyone can tell you, you pray for 6 months or you pray for 3 months. You pray as long as something is on your heart. And then at some point in time, God may say, enough. Okay, stop praying. But until then, I can't tell you to stop praying. And we know so many examples of people who prayed for things for years. All right? And sometimes, because you know why? Because sometimes God doesn't say no. God says not yet. All right? God says not yet. So I can't give you an answer to that. Most of my prayers to bring my brother back to God, they're way too far. And because of my dad's fault. I mean, is there someone that's too far for God to reach? Like, is there a place on this earth that God's hand can't reach that point? Don't give up. Okay, don't give up. All right, because you never know. We got so many examples of God answering people's prayers after years and years and years and years. And I would never tell anyone to give up on prayer. Okay, and you'll become a better person when you pray too, even if God doesn't give you exactly what you want. Okay. We got 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Thank you for all those hearts that are popping up. I appreciate it. I appreciate those hearts. Any final thoughts or questions for me? 1 minute to go. Okay. Well, if not, thank y'all very much for tuning in to my first show. That was exciting. That was exciting. This is an awesome venue. Thank you. I appreciate y'all tuning in very much. Especially the 12 a.m. people or the 2:30 a.m. or from wherever it is that you are. Will I be scoping again? This was kind of a demo. I think it went pretty good. We'll kind of see how it goes. I think I might, but who knows? Yeah, I will. I will be. I don't know how regularly. I love you. Thank you very much. I love you back. Can't read your name, but thank you. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Have a great day. I love y'all. God bless you. I'm praying for y'all. And hail to the Redskins, all right? Take care. Bye-bye.